Joining us today, Labour MP Catherine Atkinson, Conservative MP Luke Evans, Parth Patel from the left-leaning think tank the IPPR, and Madeline Grant from the Daily Telegraph. This is Politics Live. Who's right, Parth, in your mind, Chris O'Shea or Ed Miliband?
Ed Miliband, hands down. I'm sorry, Chris O'Shea's analysis there, I'm afraid, is just completely out of date. And people that make arguments that Chris are making usually are doing it from a point of interest rather than evidence-based argument.
Catherine was trying to say that, yeah.
Which is that, look, we've got a boss of a fossil fuel energy company saying the future is fossil fuels. On the other hand, you've got a Secretary of State of a democratically elected government whose primary responsibility is to the British government and is acting in the service of the common good. So, I mean, look, given that we're here, I think what Desnes is trying to do two things. It's trying to reduce bills and it's trying to slow climate breakdown. I think the interesting thing that Ed Miliband is doing is he's trying to think about that in a joined up way. That's new because I think he's clocked onto something that I think is one of the great puzzles of our time, something that other people I wish were spending more time to solve, which is why when the price of renewables has collapsed, we're not using them more. We've all seen the same charts. Solar, drop. Wind, in one of the windiest countries in the world, is so much cheaper than it was. It's cheaper now than so many fossil fuels, and yet we're not using them more. That's got to change, and I think that's what Ed Miliband and the government is trying to do. Yeah, I think we probably do have to give the government some credit here, because, I mean, most of this growth, this 0.7%, it's not a figure we usually are used to seeing around UK growth figures, is about a rise in investment. And the number one plank the government has made about its growth strategy is growing investment. And, I mean, when we look back to the autumn budget, most of the sort of mood music, the conversations on the back of that were like, well, that was a bit of a disaster. But, I mean, was it? The most significant element of that budget were the changes to the fiscal rules. That has lifted the lid on government investment in the industries of tomorrow, investing in the infrastructure. And that has allowed private investment to come in as well. That might be what we're seeing. It might be. It's not certain. So I think this is a step in the right direction, and it's good and positive news. But data has this mischievous sort of trick of often missing. And there is always this degree of separation here between sort of aggregate GDP figures, which I think are largely speaking a pointless debate that we have again and again and again.
Not too pointless.
And the thing that matters, which is that, and I know we're going to be talking about the EU and the potential trade deals, but the price of eggs and butter, if you want them to come down, your most obvious instrument there is to strike a better deal with the places you import them. Potentially, very potentially, of course, we'll see taxes go up. But I mean, the problem I have with this discussion is that it feels a bit upside down. What we know, and we're about to come on to this, is our public services are in desperate need of investment. Yeah. We need to find a way to put more money into the NHS, into the criminal justice system. The question is how, right? So part of that might be tax. We're certain that borrowing is going to go up. But one thing that is new about the state and the role of the state today is it's been drawn into the job of growing the economy. And they've been drawn into that job because markets are not doing it. It used to be the case that as long as the state respected the market and provided it with skilled workers, growth would take care of itself. For the past 15 years, that has not been true. And what we're seeing at the moment is a degree of innovation in policymaking and economic policymaking in countries like the UK with a long history of a hands-off approach to the economy, putting their hands back onto the steering wheel with industrial policy, with investment, with public ownership over some industries, with increasing regulation in some areas, but pulling back regulation in other areas. And I think that's why the Chancellor should take some confidence from the statistics today. She should be emboldened in her approach in sort of the autumn budget and go the next step further. There's a new role of the state, there's a new role of the market, and there's a new nature of the correct relationship between the two of them.
So are prison sentences too long?
Yes, they are. Commit a robbery today, on average, you're going to get about a 13-month longer sentence than if you committed the exact same robbery 10 years ago. So something's happened, prison sentences have gotten too long, and this is the number one cause of why the prison population in England and Wales has doubled over the past 30 years, even though crime rates have fallen dramatically. So there is something going on here. And I mean, the way I sometimes think about this is just because I used to work in them, is that we've run out of prison places and kind of think about that in the way, why we run out of hospital places. And those sorts of things, there's no prison places left, there's no hospital places left. They're emblematic of a system that is, I mean, rotten and in deep need of reform all the way down. So yes, this is about we don't have enough prison places, but you peel that back and it's about backlogs in the courts, which mean that 1 in 5 prisoners today is there because they're just waiting to be tried or sentenced. 1 in 5 prisoners. You've got the lengthening prison sentences, which mean that people are just spending much longer in there. You've got a probation service that's down on his knees, so that when people go out, they're much more likely to break the terms of the parole, and so they're going back in. There's so many layers here that are overlapping and intersecting, but the problem, I think, the thing I'm trying to point out here is that This is a crisis that's been brewing for so long, and the buck has to stop with politicians. It's a political failure because it's the outcome of political decisions. And I'm sorry to say, Luke, it has been largely during that long period of Conservative governments, not just of austerity, because prison services and probation services were cut quite dramatically, but also because we've known for maybe at least 5 years prison spaces are about to run out unless we did something dramatically different. Did we do anything dramatically different? No. But we're in a position where we are now rationing prison places because we're worried that we're going to run out of them. So there are no easy choices here. It's just trade-offs. There's a hard choice and there's an even harder choice. And to be honest, the Secretary of State has probably got the most difficult job. Just so we are clear what we're talking about here. We are talking about basically the most fundamental job of the state, which is to keep the public safe. And I think what the Justice Secretary is doing, and when I said she had hard trade-offs, she doesn't want to get to the situation where she's at Christmas and we can't lock up someone who's committed a serious offence. And that would be a total breakdown of law and order. We have to do everything we possibly can to avoid a lawless Christmas. And I think that's why what's happening is happening. The immediate term, there's only tough situations. I think the big question is, will the government prioritise this in the way they prioritise the NHS? We're going to stop people falling ill. We're going to stop people committing crimes. We're going to stop people going to hospital. We're going to stop people going to prisons. That would be a genuine agenda for social policy in 2025. I don't think you should be casting aside those concerns, but I would like them to be braver. Yeah, I think there's a different story you can tell here. And I mean, I was a young person not that long ago.
Good for you.
And there's something about the way politicians and political people talk about young people. Is it about net migration figures? Is it about universities? Is it about labour market shortages in the hospitality sector? No, it's just about young people. And sometimes that matters. Young people are curious. They have a pleasure of finding things out. And there is real value to expanding the imagination by travelling between different countries, engaging with different cultures, learning different languages. And yes, some of that is useful. I've travelled around Europe and I've learned about different ways in which democracies and healthcare systems are organised in Germany versus France. But I've also learned that most Belgian households have a deep fat fryer plugged into their house next to the kitchen sink, and that's just normal because they love eating chips. And I like the fact that I know that.